Welcome to this exciting tutorial in Dreamweaver designing for the web. So the objective of this particular little exercise is to make a better designer of you working with M spaces. Now for some of you are a little scared of that word EM. And M is equal to the height of a capital M per typeface. You don't have to work in M's, but if you work in M's for designing in fluid grid percentages, M is the place to go for setting things like sizes for text, sizes for body, etc., etc. My name is Robert Farrell. This is a sample lesson on udemy.com/think, learn, earn. If you're watching this on YouTube, welcome to you as well. My objective is to get you to think and involve in the software and understand how things work. Through that understanding, it'll make a better user of the software. My objective is to involve you in a thinking process, not just to say, well, it's this way because I said so. I want you to understand why it does what it does. Or if it's menu choice, I want to understand why you go to that menu, etc., etc. So my job is to teach you how the software thinks and involve you in the thinking. Okay, so let's get started here. Now, this will be a very short, simple exercise in understanding how I can work with M spacing. M spacing, or an M, is a relative unit of measurement. So by default, 1M equals the height of a capital M for that particular typeface. So as an example, I have some basic rule structure here. I have a div tag with an ID of pixel box and a div tag with a ID of M box, which is down here, which I'll get to in a second. Now, once you understand this, and once I kind of declutter this and demystify this whole process, it's going to make total sense to you. So as an example, if you look down here for a second, as I click, you'll see that I do have my H1 through H6 tags set to M space. And this is what it defaults to, basically. 2 M's for the H1 tag, just like I've written here. I'm just going to delete that for a second. So this is my default setup without doing anything. So basically, if you just had a piece of text and you came down here and hit Command 1, Command 2, Command 3, or Control 1 through Command 6 on Windows, it would basically default to that setting. Now here is the true advantage of working with M's, setting your typeface in M's as opposed to pixels. It'll be relative, which means if you decrease the size of your body tag or increase the size of your body tag, it will affect everything else on the page that was set to an M. Now, I'm not a big fan of setting the width of something to an M space like this box, but I'm just going to share with you how that works. I would set that to percentages, okay? But you could set it to an M space. So here's how this works. Right now, my body copy is set to nothing. If I double click, you'll see I have a rule for my body copy, but I've not changed anything. This is simply my body tag. My body tag is, of course, the parent tag of the entire site. It influences everything on the page. So if I was to go ahead and set this to 16 pixels and hit the apply option, notice nothing changes on my page. So that's a good indicator that it does default to 16 pixels, and that's true. By default, Dreamweaver in all web browsers defaults to 16 pixels times Roman typeface. So that's why this is in times Roman by default. Now, of course, if we want to override the default, we would come here and change it to something else. But that's not what this particular exercise is about. So 16 pixels basically equals what? 16 pixels, if you listen to my theory on this, basically equals 1 M. Okay, so I hit the apply option. Again, nothing changes here because it is itself. A body tag by default font size is 16 pixels, which is equal to itself, which is 1 M. Okay, so again, I'm just going to cancel this for a second. So I just want to make sure that's set to nothing. Make it change, save a change. So because this is set to a M space, so as an example, I'm going to go back into here and I'm going to set this. I'm going to double click my H1 tag. So by default, if I was to get rid of that and hit the apply option, now this is a little kind of a glitch with CS6. Notice it didn't change my apply option. So I just have to go ahead and type something else into there and it will apply. So if this is still grayed out, it's not going to affect your change. I just want to share that with you. So right now, if I hit the apply option, you'll see nothing on the page say it changes. So that should tell you that the H1 default is 2M. It is 2M. Now let's say I want to say, what is that in pixels? Well, 2m, so 2 divided by 16. 2 divided by 16, well, I have to make sure this is set in pixels, by the way. I have to make sure this is set to pixels, not m space. So first of all, let's just set this to 16 pixels. I'm sorry, to 2m. That is its default to 2. Now I'm going to change this back to pixels. Now the reason I'm doing that, if you watch some of my other videos on Dreamweaver or Illustrator or other Adobe products, you can do your math right here, but in Dreamweaver you can't do the math unless it's set to pixels. You can't have this in percentages into your math. So I'm simply going to say 2 divided by 16. 2 divided by 16 is 0.125. So 1.25 times 16 is 2, which is 2 m's. So that's how the math works out. So that's just telling you that the H1 tag is that much bigger than the body tag. So it's basically twice as big. So in other words, if my body copy was 16 pixels and I was to times that times 2, which would be 32 pixels, again, if I have the apply option, notice nothing changes. So that will tell you right there that 32 pixels rather, 32 pixels equal to 2 m's. Hence, 1 m, if you didn't sleep through 4th grade math class, is equal to 16 pixels. So it's pretty exciting stuff once you understand this. It makes it very, very enjoyable. Now, the true advantage of setting my H1 through H6 tags in M space is this. If I now increase or decrease my body size, now it doesn't matter what I'd increase or decrease my body size to, but it's going to affect this. So again, my base body tag is 16 pixels. So it'd be very foolish of me to make a rule to set this to 16 pixels. It is 16 pixels. But if I wanted to make this, say, I don't know, 14 pixels, watch what happens over here to the left. It's going to decrease the size of everything relative to my base font, which is my body tag. My body tag is the parent of the entire site. Notice it also affected the width of this box because this was set to M space. And M is a relative unit of measurement based on the parent tag, which in this particular case is the body tag. Notice it didn't affect this because this was physically set to 320 pixels, which is 20 M's, which I'll talk about in just a second. So if I was to go back to this and change it to say 24 pixels, and I hit the apply option, now everything gets much bigger, including this box down here. Now, if I want to say what percentage increase or how much bigger is 24 than 16, then I could just divide that, and it's 1.5 times bigger. Or I could simply say 1.5 EM, which would be the same thing. So notice that didn't change. So for those of you that slept through 4th grade math class or back in 4th and 5th grade, when our teacher said, you know, someday you're going to need this stuff, we all went, ah. Well, I don't want you to do that. I want you to see how simple it is to basically work with M space. It's a relative unit of measurement. So if you basically set your body copy to 1M, well, basically it is 1M by default. So if you want to make your body copy by default smaller, like say 0.9 M's, well, there you go. It'll set everything relative. So if I come here and delete that, that sets it back to 1M. So everything is relative based on that 1M. Or pixels, again, you can change pixels, but once you go below 16 pixels, it's going to affect this as well, because that's the relationship. It's all based on the body tag. So again, if I wanted to say, let's make this 4 pixels less, I'm going to say, first of all, I have to change this to pixels, px, otherwise I can't do the math. So I'm going to say 16 minus 4. 16 minus 4, of course, is 12 pixels. So this is now going to be relative. It's going to be smaller than everything else on the screen because I set it to bigger or smaller. So if I make it bigger, everything else is set to bigger, etc., etc. So what I want to share with you, if you don't want your body copy to be anything but what it is by default, 16 pixels, well, don't change this font size. So as an example, if I make this 1M, well, it is 1M, and everybody is 1M. So what I'm trying to share with you with working with CSS rules is don't make redundancy. So as an example, don't make it black. It is black. Don't make your body copy normal. It is normal. Now, what is this for? This is for to override a child tag. So something that relates to that, it overrides it. So as an example, of course, if I was to change my body copy to say red, then of course everything's going to be red unless I decided the child tag, these are the children of the body copy. So if I double click right here and I say, hey, I don't want to be red, I want to be back to black, that's where you override it back to black, and then you get to be black. Now that's a whole other exercise, and that's not what this video is about. This video is to get you fluent in understanding how to work with M's. So here we have down here, here's a box. This box was set to 20 M's. Well, what's the width of 20 M's? Well, in pixels, 20 M's is 320 pixels. Now, how do I know that? Well, because 16 pixel is my base, that's what my default M space is based on my body copy. 16 times 20 is 320, and I can do that right in my box. So as an example, if I double click my rule right here and I wanted to build this from scratch, I can literally just do this. I could say 16 times 20 is 320 pixels. Okay, so if I want to figure out the width of that M space, it's a no-brainer. It's simply 20 because the base is 16. Now it's not for M spacing, don't fall into the trap, it's not 16 times 20 because 16 is 1 M. You understand? 16 equals 1 M. So if you wanted to make this 2M, if I type in 2, basically it's now 2 M's, which is 16 times 2. So let's actually make this, so you can see this a little bit better. Let's actually make this 4 M's. Or actually, let's make it 10 M's. So it's now 10 M's wide. Well, what is 10 M's wide in pixels? So look at this right here. So this is set up to 10 M's, but I want to convert that to pixels. So how would I do that? I would simply say 16. Again, you have to make sure that you're in pixels because otherwise you can't do the math. So 16 times 10. 16 times 10 is 160, so notice that this doesn't change because that is 10 M's. 10 M's is equal to 16 times 10. 20 M's, 16 times 20. 30 M's, 16 times 30. You get the bit? It's really that simple. I'm going to undo this a few times. So because this was set to pixels and this was set to M's, if I change my relative base font of this, so I want to basically go up in size. So I'm going to say I want to increase this by, say, 20%. So I can say 0.2. My mistake, I hit the return key too quickly. So 0.2 and hit the apply option. Now that's a 20% increase. 0.3, 30%, 0.4, 40%. I want to increase this 0.65, 0.65%. Etc., etc. So now everything is bigger based on that because now I increase the size of it. So again, these are your base for M space. That's what it defaults to. But it doesn't default. See, H1 tags, H6 tags don't default to M space. They default to pixels. So as an example, if I'm going to undo this for a second to go back to where we started. Okay, so as an example, I'm just going to change just the H1 tag. I'm going to change this to 2 M's. Well, 2 M's is what? Well, if 1 M is 16, then 2 M's is 32. So I'm going to change this back to its default, which is 32 pixels. Notice it didn't change. So I'm going to keep this, and I'm just going to change the color so you can visually see the H1 tag. Thought I picked red, apparently not. Okay, make a change, save a change. So watch, this is physically set to pixels. This is M's, this is M's, this is M's, this is M, etc., etc. So now if I come to my body copy and I set this to say 20% bigger, which is 1.2, I can now increase the size for everything. It's not going to touch this one because this one's no longer set to M space. Okay, this is set to pixels. Okay, now if I go back into here and I double click my H1 tag and I get rid of that and I hit the apply option, then it does increase the size because now it's a default. Now it's going to inherit from the body tag. So that's a very important step. Let's do that again in case you didn't catch that. Okay, so I'm going to set, and I'm going to make this much bigger. I'm going to say, let's just make this 16 times 3. So it's going to be 48 pixels. So it's going to be really large. So you can definitely see that this is much bigger. Now again, I physically defined a value for this. So this value is not inheriting from the body tag by default as far as the size. Now, of course, it's going to inherit from the body tag its font or anything else in here that is blank. So that's how CSS works. It cascades down. Anything that's blank in here is going to inherit from the body. But since as the child I said, look, this is what I want it to be. I want it to be 48 pixels. Okay, so now if I change my body copy, let's make this 1.5 ems. Well, it's not going to change the H1 tag because the H1 tag physically has a parameter set to it. And in the parameter by default is not M spaces, it's pixels because it says so right here. However, I just want to be crystal clear about this. If I go and remove that, so now it's defaulting to inheriting from the body. Why is it going to do that? Because there's nothing here. Now, don't confuse nothing with a value. So as an example, 0 is a value. Nothing inherits. Don't confuse nothing with 0. The only time that that's true is if you have nothing in your bank account and you have 0 in your bank account. In that particular case, it is the same thing. So if I hit the apply option right now, now it's going to inherit from the body copy. So now it's going to inherit from the body copy. So the body copy, based on this scenario, was set to 1.5. So now if I go and set this to, let's set this to 0.8 M spaces, now it's going to affect the H tag because the H tag wasn't set to anything. So technically what I'm sharing with you that if you don't want to go through the process of actually setting this in M space, you don't actually have to do that. You don't have to do that. I'm just sharing with you that it is what it is by default. But if you set your body copy or increase or decrease your body copy, by default, everything else is going to change. So as an example, in closing, I'm just going to delete these rules. I'm just going to physically delete those rules. So those rules no longer exist. Okay, so basically this goes back to default. So I don't have a rule. Very important step here. I don't have a rule for H1 through H6. So these are just default. So watch this. I can still do the same thing. So I go ahead and set this to say 2M space. Everything else is going to increase by, it's going to double its size. It's going to increase by 50%. It's going to, if I want to say, let's make this 0.5 M space, and everything's at 50% reduction. So again, if you don't set the rules for that, which I encourage you don't have to do, and just let me revert this to the last saved version. Okay, but that's what it defaults to. It does default to these numbers, not that one. This defaults to 2M, so I'm going to go ahead and change that to 2Ms. And of course, it defaults to black. So I'm not going to put in black, I'm just going to leave it be default. So never define black if that's what it defaults to. That's just going to create a redundancy, a headache that you don't need. So hopefully this helped you very, very much. And again, this is just a little free teaser section of udemy.com. Of course, if you're really serious, guys and gals, on making money using my time-tested techniques, and I mean I really push the envelope. I totally squeeze the sponge on the software to make a better user out of you. This is a total master class. This is cutting through all the nonsense. I really encourage you. Don't read books. Don't even watch other videos unless they're produced by me. And I don't say that in a very callous, egotistical way. I know it's out there. If you want to get your time wasted, in fact, don't even take my word for it. Contact some of my students. Read my reviews. My techniques for using this Dreamweaver software, especially all the software techniques I teach, are production techniques that are going to get you to work smart, work faster, more importantly, squeeze the sponge on the software. If you're really not getting that from these free videos, then, to be very frank, I can't help you. I really can't. If you don't realize the benefit of my technique and how I'm involving you in thinking to solve problems here, I'm doing two things for you. I'm cutting through all the clutter, all the mistakes I made going back 25, 26, 23, 22 years ago. And of course, with web development, going back about 18, 19 years ago. So I'm cutting through all that nonsense, all the mistakes, all the hair pulling that I did at 2 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't figure something out, and then suddenly the light bulb went out. Those are the techniques that I share with my students, and that's what makes my training so very different. I just don't go down the list. You'd be surprised. I get students that went to Parsons Pratt, the new school here in New York City. The teacher actually stood in front of the course and read a book, read it from a book. Are you kidding me? I hired you as an instructor to share your experiences and the best way to do this. And this all comes down to technique. My technique works because I tested it again and again and again and again. So my battle cry is this: I involve you into thinking. If there's a better, faster, quicker, smarter way to do something with software, I'm the guy to learn it from, because I've been there. I've been in the trenches. I've made those mistakes before. So I encourage you to sign up for all my classes, but of course that comes down to your budget, which I totally respect. But just take one of my classes and start from there. Once you start making money, you're going to want to take more of my classes. Now, what I mean by that, don't be so cocky, well, I'm making $2,000, $3,000 a month doing web development. I'm happy with that. Well, if you're happy with that, good for you. But I want you to make more. I have students that make the most they made in their life was maybe $18,000, $19,000, $20,000 waiting tables. No disrespect to waiting tables, by the way. But now they're making 90, 120. I had students last year that made well over mid 250, and they worked. Actually, they got so spoiled with how much money they made, and I kind of got on their case about this. I had a student last year. She made over $250,000, and she did it in 7 months. She took the rest of the time off and went to Europe. Now, that's just getting a little spoiled, but my techniques will make you money. Now, do I guarantee that? Absolutely not. Because how can I guarantee that you're going to put in the time, you're going to ask me good questions, you're going to go through the exercises step by step exactly how I do it. So you can go to Harvard and wait tables when you're done. So I'm not guaranteeing my training. Absolutely not. As far as getting work with it, that's totally up to you. I will help and assist you and share with you how to do that. But any school that says, hey, take my class and we have jobs for you, bull pucky. Nonsense. The only thing you'll ever get from me is a straight answer, is an absolute 100% candid answer. It may not even be the answer that you're looking to have, but it will be the correct answer, and it will be the straight answer every single time. I'm very responsive to my students' needs. I take my students very, very seriously. If you're not sure about that, contact some of my students on Udemy and ask them how responsive I am. When they have a question, I'm there for them. Okay, I don't, in fact, usually within a half hour or 45 minutes, even though I have a very, very busy schedule, I keep my iPhone on me and I respond to emails and questions right away as quickly as possible. Okay, so again, thank you for being here. My name is Robert Farrell. Enjoy the rest of the lessons in this free section. Now, if you're on YouTube, I highly suggest for free you watch the rest of these on Udemy, because Udemy has some really built-in features that will help you to learn better, meaning you can take notes, you can ask me questions directly, you can download the file to your computer, etc., etc. My name is Robert. Thanks for being here, and do something nice for somebody, because I just did something nice for you. Carpe Diem 2013. Enjoy the day.